All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive into the topic of the day, fast hiring. So, the first question that I have for you, Jacob, is why does moving quickly often lead to mishires?
So I've always, I've always been under the impression that like when people panic, usually because we need this job filled like right now because there's a sense of urgency, and a lot of times it's a false manufactured one. It's because they have ignored it, or there's been an issue going on for a while, and it was like we're just gonna let future, Jacob and whoever else is the hiring manager, we're gonna let those people figure it out, and then all of a sudden it all hits, and so then you're scrounging around. Um, and so what happens is when you're in a panic or you rush, you tend to get tunnel vision. And when you get tunnel vision, that's when you make the mistakes. That's when you're hiring. Um, I guess you don't stick necessarily to a plan. You don't really know what you're even looking for. You're hiring more out of desperation than necessity, and cultural fit or even skill set. And sometimes, so the thoroughness tends to go away. So when you hire quickly like that, it is a recipe for, I don't like to say bad hires. I think mishiring. Mishiring is the term I generally like to use. And both on the candidate side and on the hiring manager side, right? Because sometimes the candidates rush through it, they get there in like a month or two and they're like, yo, this place is bananas. Like this is not for me. And so it works both ways.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I feel like when companies hire fast, they're usually focusing on like the what of the job and kind of the skills, the hard skills that are needed for the job. And often less focused on kind of like how the job gets done. And I
right.
know we talked about this a little bit in the last episode too, is kind of the skills and behaviors. So there's usually more focus on only the skills and less so on the behaviors, which, sometimes may work out. I mean, depending on the kind of job, but often what I've seen from my experience, at least, it leads to problems down the road when it comes to like fitting into the environment of the company and also performance and all of that. If you're not focused on the behaviors and kind of like how the job gets done during the interview process.
Right. And you,
Um,
you tend to skip the cultural part of it too. And I think that's where you're going with it and that's and like we talked about last week, that is such a huge part of a successful hire and how
yeah,
to scale a company is what is the culture like? And so you 100% overlook that part of it. And it's easy to fake like oh yeah, I'm a good guy. I'm a this, I'm a that on both sides in a 30-minute conversation. You know what I mean? But when you have to deal with that person in and out and they're under pressure, or, they get stressed or there's a disconnect, how are they going to respond? You can't, when you speed through the process, you can't gauge that correctly. And then that's just, it's just bad all around.
yeah, yeah. Like I've seen, I mean, whether it's fast hiring or not, but I've seen like a lot of hiring managers and decision makers for roles just try to get somebody in that is like them. And again, we touched upon this last week, but just to go into it a little bit more and kind of finding somebody that maybe is easy to talk to during an interview, or, oh, I feel like this person, has my same kind of background or went to the same school or whatever the case may be. I think they'll be great, and kind of diving in quickly to that decision versus, really trying to figure out whether they're filling a need in the company. And I hear so many, I've heard, so much based on my experience, kind of like, I want to have, it's better to have anyone in the seat versus no one. And that kind of mentality is really tricky, and it leads to making these decisions really fast just to fill a seat, because kind of a warm body is better than no body mentality, which might work for the
It's
first.
not always the case though. Sometimes it costs you more money to do that in the long.
Exactly. That's right. And sometimes that helps fill a plug, for a month or something, in a job, but is not the right solution long term. And I hate when I when I hear that type of thing. But it happens, and it's kind of like, well, this person's good enough, let's bring them on. And that costs, a lot down the road.
So
And
let me ask you this then, because I think this is important too. Let's say that you made a fast hire, like you sped through it. You only did maybe like 1 or 2 rounds, but from the moment you engage with the candidate to the time that you hired them was maybe only like a week or 2 weeks. So I mean, you really went hard on it. Let's say that you're like, oh my gosh, this is probably not. It's not a terrible, like he's not like, but it's not really working out. What do you think the best way to remedy that would be? So if you're the hiring manager, you're the hiring team, what do you do now? Because you're like, if I let go of this person, I got to start all over. And I clearly, and then because you see that a lot with clients, right?
Yep.
It's a continuous like revolving door, and they're like, I don't understand why it's. And I can tell you it's because your interview process is broken. There's a disconnect there. But let's say you find yourself in that position. What do you think is the best way to handle that, or to try to stick it out, or remedy the situation? I mean, what would you tell clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think it's so dependent on what the situation is and how likely that person is to kind of turn things around and perform with some kind of, training, or, do they have the potential to succeed? And I think if the answer is no, like if it truly is a case where we brought in the wrong person, we don't see them having the skills or the behaviors to succeed here, my advice is always don't drag things on. It's better for the employee, the candidate slash employee, and for the company. It's a much better use of time and money to start focusing on bringing somebody else on. Yes, there's, a whole lot of costs associated with that because you just spent money hiring somebody, but the faster you're able to make a decision like that, and I don't want this to come across as cutthroat, because, there are situations where there's potential for turnaround, and with a little bit of investment in the person, like, they could succeed. But I'm saying, like, if that decision is made that that's not the case, it's much better to move faster to, move towards an exit for both parties, and have a straight conversation with the person too. So
Yeah,
it's a tricky one though, and I see it play out, and sometimes the decision is to kind of go, parallel paths. Like, let's see what other candidates are out there to kind of take a look at, and we see what we can do in the next month or two to develop the person, and then, kind of have a time frame of, if that doesn't work, then, go to the option B.
Say that you're the candidate and you get in, and now you're feeling it like there is a disconnect. This is not what I signed up for. Like, there is no guidance. The onboarding was non-existent. Like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Now I'm scared of, like, I just went on this like 6-month long job search because it's hard out there.
Yeah.
I finally landed something. Like, what do you think that they should do? I mean, what if you're a candidate? Like, how do you broach that subject?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always say, like, open and honest conversations are the best way to go about it. So if it's a new hire, I mean, my recommendation would be first to talk to your manager and kind of have an honest conversation about how the first 30 days are going, or first week is going, or whatever the timeline is. And tell them, the things that you need more support with, or, kind of how you're feeling, and, or talk to HR. I mean, go to whoever your contact was kind of when you first started, the HR leader at the company, whatever the case may be, to kind of have a conversation there too, because whoever's there from an HR standpoint can help be kind of the mediator, if you will, between kind of you, the candidate and new employee, and, the manager too, to kind of help work some things out. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah. And I think I always think it's important too, to, have it candid, bring it up to your manager. Cause again, like, you want to have a relationship with your team, with the manager, where you can talk freely, respectfully, but freely, because that's how you get stuff done. I also I always tell candidates too, is, put stuff in writing. No, it's hard to convey tone on an email, but like when you have the conversation, so you don't necessarily like write it all out like, this is what my agreements are. Broach the subject, have a conversation with your manager. This is this, that, and the other thing. And then when you're done with that meeting, say, hey, just so you know, like I'm going to send you an email just to recap everything that we kind of talked about. And then copy, if you have an HR person, copy them or just send it directly to your manager. So that way it's on record.
Yeah.
Because it does a couple things. It protects you as the candidate. It keeps everyone, the expectations are clear at that point. It's not like there's no room for misinterpreting of what you said, I said, what the expectation was. Now I'm reiterating what we just talked about. So now it's clear and you can build on that and you do it respectfully. It's not like I'm going to put this in writing because it's, I'm just doing this so that way we're all on the same page because I want to be successful. You want me to be successful. At the end of the day, we're all here to like make money and grow. Right. I mean, that's why we work. Otherwise we'd be on a beach somewhere drinking Mai Tais all day. Right.
Sounds nice, huh?
Yeah. It's like out here in Connecticut, 90. I think the conversation on both sides, like before everyone writes everyone off and starts the office gossip, that whole thing is have the conversation open, and you need to establish that from day one. Is like, if you have an issue, if you need anything, come talk to me candidly, even if it's bad, even if you think you're going to hurt my feelings, I need you to come talk to me because I can't change if I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And that works both ways. Yeah, totally. No, this is great. And just a couple of like really quick nuggets too. We were talking about the cost of kind of, rehiring or mishire. And there's always a lot of numbers thrown around. I've seen a lot of different numbers, but I just pulled up one quickly here. So when you count recruiting, onboarding, lost productivity, team disruption, the total cost, is according to SHRM, to replace a role can be 50 to 150% of that annual salary of the role. I know there's other numbers out there floating around too, but I mean, the key message there is it's very costly if you're not, hiring correctly. And if you don't have those right processes in place when it comes to recruiting, interviewing, onboarding to bring somebody on successfully. And also another topic that we should talk about, which kind of triggered me as we were talking is, a lot of this fast hiring is a result of poor workforce planning, of like planning ahead for what's needed. And maybe we'll do a whole nother episode on that. But that's often what I've seen to be the issue is when, you're not able to forecast what types of roles are needed, plan for future attrition, look at kind of the warning signs of somebody that's burnt out, like all of these things. And then it comes down to, we need to get somebody in like yesterday. And a lot of that can be avoided by some of these other things that are put in place. So we'll talk about that another time. Yeah. It's a whole nother topic. Whole other deal. I know. Oh, it's tough. It's tough in 15 minutes. So I know we're past 15 minutes. It's tough to cram all of this in, but we wanted to kind of have bite-sized segments here. So great conversation today. Next episode, we're planning to talk about hiring for potential versus experience and kind of what actually works there. And we'll share some of our experiences. So tune in next week. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys. Okay, bye.